The great chamber floated in the darkness of space like a jewel. Inside, 12 alien species sat in a circle, their forms strange and terrible. Some had scales, others had tentacles, and a few looked like living crystals. They were the Galactic Council, the oldest powers in the known universe. They had ruled for 10,000 years. At the center of the circle stood a human woman. Her name was Elena Vasquez, and she wore a simple gray uniform. She looked small compared to the massive aliens around her, but her eyes were hard and steady. She did not look afraid. The Zathari hierarch spoke first. He was a reptilian creature, 3 times the height of a human, with golden scales and eyes like burning coals. His voice boomed through the chamber. Human, you stand accused of violating the Treaty of 7 Suns. Your kind has spread like a plague across 15 systems that do not belong to you. These worlds are ours by ancient right. Elena's jaw tightened. Those worlds were empty when we found them. Dead rocks floating in space. We brought life to them. We built cities. 2 billion humans call those places home now. A floating sphere of liquid metal pulsed with light. It was a mercurial, a species that lived as conscious fluid. Its voice sounded like music made of knives. Your ignorance offends us. Those worlds were seeded by our ancestors millions of years ago. Your brief existence does not erase our claim. We checked the records, Elena said, her voice cutting through the chamber. Every database, every archive. There was no claim filed on those systems. Under galactic law, they were free for settlement. The hierarch's tail smashed against the floor, creating a sound like thunder. Law, you speak to us of law? We created the laws when your species was still living in caves. You have been in space for 300 years. We have been here for 10,000. You are children playing with weapons you do not understand. Around the circle, other council members stirred. Some nodded in agreement. Others remained silent, watching. Elena noticed that one species, the Void Watchers, sat perfectly still. They were tall and thin, wrapped in dark robes that seemed to absorb light. They never spoke in council sessions, but their votes always counted. An insectoid creature clicked its mandibles together. The translator made its words sound angry. We have also detected your military preparations. Weapons platforms, hidden fleets, quantum mines in neutral space. You claim to be peaceful colonists, but you prepare for war. Elena took a deep breath. This was the moment she had been dreading. We prepare for survival. Every species in this chamber has tried to push us around since the day we left Earth. You tax our trade routes. You block our expansion. You treat us like we're nothing. So yes, we build defenses. We'd be fools not to. The hierarch leaned forward. His teeth were like daggers. Then hear the wisdom of the council, human. You will retreat from the 15 contested systems within 30 standard days. You will dismantle your military stations. You will accept council observers on all your worlds. If you refuse, we will remove you by force. The chamber fell silent. Elena felt her heart pounding in her chest, but she kept her face calm. She had known this was coming. Earth had known. Every human colony had known. They had all made their choice weeks ago. No, she said simply. The word echoed in the vast chamber. Several council members made sounds of shock. The hierarch's eyes widened with disbelief. What did you say? I said no. Humanity will not retreat. Those 2 billion people will not be abandoned. Those worlds are ours, and we will defend them. The Mercurial's form rippled with what might have been laughter. You cannot be serious. Do you understand what you are refusing? We represent 11 civilizations. Our combined fleet numbers over 3,000 warships. We have weapons that can crack planets. What do you have? A few hundred ships? Mining lasers converted into guns? Elena smiled, and there was no warmth in it. We have something you've forgotten about. Something you lost a long time ago, and what is that? The hierarch demanded. The will to fight for what's ours. The willingness to pay any price. You sit in your comfortable stations and vote on other people's lives. But humanity? We've been fighting since the day we crawled out of the ocean. We fought the cold, the heat, the predators, each other. We've died by the billions learning how to survive. And now you think you can just order us to give up our homes? You think we'll run because you have bigger ships? She turned slowly, looking at each council member. My answer is no. Humanity's answer is no. If you want those worlds, you'll have to come and take them. And I promise you this, you'll pay for every inch in blood. The hierarch rose to his full height. Then you have chosen extinction. The council votes now, all in favor of military intervention against humanity. One by one, the council members voted. Green lights appeared above their stations. 11 green lights. Only the Void Watchers abstained, their light staying dark. It is decided, the hierarch announced. The Council authorizes corrective action against human settlements. You have 30 days to evacuate civilians. After that, any humans remaining in contested systems will be considered hostile combatants. Elena touched her communication device. Open channel to Earth, maximum priority. The hierarch's eyes narrowed. You wish to beg your leaders to see reason? No, Elena said. I'm telling them you've made your choice. Now we make ours. She looked directly at the hierarch. You wanted to teach humanity a lesson. You're about to get one instead. You should have left us alone. She walked out of the chamber without waiting to be dismissed. Behind her, the council members looked at each other with confusion and growing unease. The Void Watchers turned their hidden faces toward the hierarch, and though they did not speak, their silence felt like a warning. In her ship, Elena transmitted her final report to Earth. Her hands shook as she typed, but not from fear, from rage, from determination. The message was simple. They voted for war. Activate Protocol Prometheus. Show them what humanity can do. Across human space, the message was received. Military bases went to full alert. Hidden shipyards doubled their production. Colony militias began training. And deep in classified facilities, scientists activated weapon systems that had been built in secret for this exact moment. The 30-day countdown began. But humanity was not preparing to retreat. Admiral Marcus Chen stood on the bridge of the UEDS Indomitable and watched the countdown clock. 29 days, 18 hours, and 42 minutes had passed since the Council's ultimatum. In 18 minutes, the deadline would expire. In 20 minutes, the war would begin. Around him, his crew worked in focused silence. These were veterans, every one of them. They had all volunteered for this mission, knowing they might not return home. Chen felt the weight of their trust like a physical thing pressing down on his shoulders. Status report, he said quietly. His tactical officer looked up from her station. All defensive platforms are online. Minefield is armed and ready. Fleet formations are holding position. We have 473 ships ready for engagement. 473 ships against 3,000. The math was brutal, but Chen had learned long ago that wars were not won by simple arithmetic. They were won by will, by strategy, and by making the enemy pay dearly for every victory. The communication officer spoke up. Admiral, we're receiving evacuation requests from New Terra Colony. They're asking for more transport ships. Chen shook his head. Tell them the same thing I told the others. All civilian transports departed a week ago. Everyone still on those worlds chose to stay. They knew the risk, it was true. Humanity had offered evacuation to every civilian in the contested systems. But nearly 40% had refused to leave. Farmers, miners, factory workers, teachers, they had built lives on those worlds. They had buried family members in that soil. They would not abandon their homes just because some alien council said so. 5 minutes to deadline, the tactical officer announced. Chen activated his communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. In a few minutes, the Galactic Council fleet will arrive. They expect us to surrender or run. They think we're scared. They think we're weak. They're wrong. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Our ancestors fought in the trenches of Europa. They held the line at Mars Station. They died by the thousands to push humanity to the stars. Today we honor their sacrifice. Today we show the galaxy what it means to threaten humanity. No mercy, no retreat. If they want our worlds, they'll have to pry them from our cold dead hands. Across the fleet, crews cheered. Chen allowed himself a small smile. Fear was a tool, and right now humanity was going to teach the Council the meaning of terror. 1 minute, the tactical officer said. Her voice was steady, professional, detecting quantum fluctuations. Multiple jump signatures incoming. The view screen lit up with hundreds of contacts, then thousands. The Council fleet emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of angry hornets. Their ships were enormous, built over centuries of peace. They looked like floating cities, bristling with weapons. The communication system crackled. The Zathari hierarch's voice filled the bridge. Human fleet, this is your final warning. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will be met with total destruction. Chen took a deep breath. This was it, the point of no return. He thought of his daughter back on Earth, of the promise he had made to her. I'll come home or I'll make sure they can never threaten you. Open channel, he ordered. All frequencies. The communication officer nodded. "You're live, sir." Chen spoke clearly, his voice carrying to every ship in both fleets. "Sathari Hierarch, you came to our territory. You threatened our people. You expected us to bow down and obey. Instead, I'll tell you what humanity thinks of your ultimatum." He gestured to his tactical officer. "Fire everything." The space around the threshold system exploded into chaos. Hidden weapon platforms activated, launching thousands of missiles at once. The minefield that the Council fleet had so carelessly jumped into detonated, turning 100 ships into expanding clouds of debris. Human ships, small and fast, dove into the Council formation like sharks attacking whales. The Council fleet staggered under the assault. They had expected a quick battle, maybe a few token shots before humanity surrendered. They were not prepared for this level of coordinated aggression. Chen watched his tactical display with grim satisfaction. Activate Protocol Cerberus. Launch all drones. Thousands of unmanned fighters poured out of the human ships. These were not ordinary drones. Each one had a simple program. Find an enemy ship and ram into it at maximum speed. The Council fleet tried to shoot them down, but there were too many. Explosions rippled across their formation. "Enemy ships breaking formation," the tactical officer reported. "They're trying to reorganize. Our jamming is effective. Their communications are fragmented, but the Council fleet was not helpless. Their ships might be slower, but their weapons hit like sledgehammers." A human destroyer vanished in a flash of light. Then another. The casualties started mounting. "We're losing ships," the tactical officer said. 16 destroyed, 23 heavily damaged. Chen gritted his teeth. "Hold formation. All batteries concentrate fire on their capital ships. Target the Zathari dreadnoughts." The battle raged for 6 hours. Space was filled with fire and death. Human ships fought with desperate courage, but the Council fleet was simply too large. One by one, the defensive platforms were destroyed. Human ships retreated in good order, making the enemy pay for every meter of space. When the battle finally ended, Chen looked at the casualty reports and felt sick. He had started with 473 ships. Now he had 308. 40,000 humans were dead. But the Council fleet had lost 400 ships and nearly 2 million crew members. The Hierarch's face appeared on the view screen. He looked shaken, disbelieving. You fought. You actually fought. Do you understand what you've done? This is only the first battle. We will crush you. We will burn your worlds to ash." Chen smiled coldly. "You wanted our retreat. You'll get our advance." He cut the communication and turned to his officers. "Execute Phase 2. Send the signal to strike Teams Alpha through Gamma." Across the galaxy, humanity struck. While the Council celebrated their victory at Threshold System, human ships appeared in orbit over 3 Council homeworlds. They did not invade. They did not bombard. They simply transmitted a message. "We can reach you. We can hurt you. If you want war, we'll bring it to your doorstep. No world is safe. No system is secure. You started this. Now let's see who finishes it." The galaxy watched in shock. Humanity had not just defended. They had counterattacked. The Council had expected a quick police action. Instead, they had awakened something they did not understand. In the ruins of Threshold System, rescue crews searched for survivors. They found a human pilot, badly wounded but alive. The medic asked him if it had been worth it. The pilot smiled through his pain. "They thought we'd run. Now they know better. Humanity doesn't run. We fight always." The war had been raging for 4 months and the galaxy was burning. Captain Sarah Mitchell piloted her fighter through the debris field that had once been the Zathari orbital station. Around her, the battle continued. Human ships darted between the massive Council vessels like wolves attacking bears. Every few seconds, something exploded. The silence of space was broken only by the crackle of her radio and the constant warning beeps of her instruments. "Viper 3, you have 2 hostiles on your tail," her wingman called out. Sarah banked hard, pulling G-forces that would have killed her without the suit's support system. The 2 alien fighters followed, their weapons lighting up her rear shields. She did not panic. Panic got you killed. Instead, she looped back toward a damaged Council cruiser, flying straight at its hull. The alien fighters followed. At the last second, Sarah pulled up and over the cruiser. The fighters did not react fast enough. They crashed into the hull in twin explosions. Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. That made 17 kills today. Good shooting, Viper 3, her squadron leader said. Reform on me. We're moving to the next target. Sarah joined the formation and looked at the tactical display. The battle for Zathar Prime had been going on for 2 weeks. The Hierarch's throne world, the heart of his empire. Humanity had brought everything they could spare. 150 ships against the entire home defense fleet. The Council had expected humanity to defend their own territory. They had not expected humans to attack the Council's most sacred worlds. It went against every rule of civilized warfare. But humanity had decided that civilization was a luxury they could not afford. Not anymore. Admiral Chen's voice came through on the priority channel. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. The orbital defenses are down. Begin Phase 3. Bombardment wings, you are cleared to fire. Sarah watched as 30 human destroyers moved into position. Their weapons charged and then they fired. Not at military targets, at industrial centers, at shipyards, at everything that allowed the Zathari to wage war. Is this what we've become? Her wingman asked quietly. Attacking civilian infrastructure? Sarah thought about New Terra, the colony where she had grown up. The Council fleet had glassed it 3 weeks ago. 1 billion people turned to ash because they refused to surrender. Her family had been there. Her mother, her little brother, her childhood friends. They made the rules, she said flatly. They said this was a war of extermination. We're just following their lead. The bombardment continued for hours. When it ended, the Zathari industrial capacity had been reduced by 40%. It would take them years to rebuild. Years they would not have. Across the galaxy, similar battles raged. The Mercurials found human ships in their sacred pool worlds, poisoning the liquid environments that sustained their species. The crystalline Shardborn watched helplessly as human weapons shattered their singing cities. Every Council species was bleeding, but humanity was bleeding too. Every day brought news of more losses. The colony at Farpoint had fallen. The mining stations at Kepler's Edge were destroyed. Earth itself had come under attack twice, saved only by desperate last-minute defenses. The casualty counts were staggering. 50 million humans dead, then 100 million, then more. And still humanity fought. It was not strategy anymore. It was not even hate. It was something deeper, something the Council could not understand. It was the refusal to submit, the absolute conviction that death was better than slavery. In the command center of the Indomitable, Admiral Chen reviewed the reports. His fleet was down to 68 combat-ready ships. He had started this campaign with 150. The math was brutal, but the results spoke for themselves. The Zathari home defense fleet had been annihilated. Their shipyards were rubble. Their economy was collapsing. Sir, we're receiving a transmission, his communication officer said. It's from the Methane Collective. They're requesting a separate peace, Chen looked up sharply. What? The Collective is withdrawing from the war. They're offering reparations and a non-aggression treaty. They're asking for negotiations. It was the first crack in the Council's unity. The Methane Collective had always been the most cautious of the Council species. They had voted for war reluctantly, and now they were paying the price. Human raids had destroyed half their merchant fleet. Their colony worlds were under constant threat. They had decided that pride was not worth extinction. Accept their offer, Chen said. Send a delegation. But make it clear, any Council species that continues to fight will be shown no mercy. The message went out across the galaxy. One Council species had broken ranks. Others began to reconsider their position. The Shardborn started secret negotiations. The silicon-based lithoids pulled back their fleets to defend their core worlds, but the Zathari would not bend. The Hierarch had staked his entire reputation on destroying humanity. To surrender now would mean his political death. So he doubled down, throwing more ships into battle, demanding more sacrifices from his people. Sarah Mitchell's squadron was reassigned to patrol duty near the outer colonies. It should have been a quiet posting, a chance to rest and refit. But then the emergency call came in. All units, this is New Hope Colony. We are under attack. Multiple Council ships. We need immediate assistance. Sarah's blood ran cold. New Hope was where the refugees from New Terra had been relocated. 20 million survivors, including the few members of her extended family who had made it out. Viper Squadron, plot jump coordinates. Her squadron leader ordered. Maximum speed. We're not letting them have another colony. They jumped into chaos. 6 Council ships were bombarding New Hope from orbit. The colony's shields were failing. Sarah could see fires on the planet's surface, cities burning. Her squadron had 12 fighters. The Council had 6 capital ships. The math was impossible, but Sarah did not care about math anymore. "Activate Berserker Protocol," she said quietly. "Sarah, no." Her wingman protested. "That's a one-way trip." "I know," she said. "But they need time to evacuate." "We can give them that." Berserker Protocol was humanity's last resort. It overrode the safety systems on the fighter's reactor, turning the entire ship into a missile. The pilot had maybe 30 seconds to reach the target before the containment failed. There was no ejection, no escape. "It was a suicide run, I'm with you," her wingman said. "Viper Squadron, sound off if you're going in." One by one, every pilot in the squadron confirmed. 12 voices, 12 decisions to die so that others might live. They dove at the Council ships with weapons blazing. The aliens tried to shoot them down, confused by the suicidal attack. Sarah picked the largest ship, a Zathari dreadnought, and aimed straight for its reactor section. Her fighters' alarms were screaming. The reactor temperature was climbing past critical. 20 seconds, 15, 10. Her fighter hit the dreadnought's hull and punched through. The reactor went critical. The explosion tore the capital ship apart from the inside. Around her, Sarah's squadron mates were doing the same. 6 fighters became 6 massive explosions. 5 Council ships were destroyed instantly. The 6th was crippled, limping away. Sarah never saw the result. She died in the first microsecond of the explosion. Her last thought a prayer that she had bought enough time. On New Hope, the survivors watched the orbital battle. They saw the fighters sacrifice themselves. They saw the enemy fleet destroyed. They had time to evacuate now. Time to run. Time to live, and they would remember. They would remember the 12 pilots who gave everything. They would tell their children, and their children's children. They would remember that humanity survived because some people were willing to pay the ultimate price. Admiral Chen learned about Viper Squadron's sacrifice 3 hours later. He read the report in silence, then added 12 more names to the growing list. The list of heroes. The list of the fallen. The list that seemed to have no end. How many more? He asked himself quietly. How many more must die before this ends? But he knew the answer. As many as it takes. Because surrender was not an option. Retreat was not an option. Humanity would win or humanity would be extinct. There was no middle ground. 8 months had passed since the war began. The galaxy was exhausted. In the emergency council chamber, the remaining members gathered. Only 7 species still attended. The Methane Collective had withdrawn. The Shardborn had sued for peace. The Lithoids had simply stopped responding to communications. The greatest alliance in galactic history was falling apart. The Zathari hierarch looked around the chamber, and for the first time he felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Fear. "We must increase our efforts," he insisted, his voice hoarse from weeks of arguing. "The humans are weakening. Our intelligence reports indicate their manufacturing capacity is at 60%. Their fleet is scattered. One more major offensive will break them." The mercurial representative pulsed with a dull, tired light. "One more offensive? We have launched 6 major offensives. Each time we lose hundreds of ships. Each time the humans adapt. They learn. They evolve. Meanwhile, our economies are collapsing. My people are rioting in the streets. They demand an end to this war." An insectoid delegate clicked its mandibles in agreement. "The Hive Collective has lost 40% of our warrior caste. It will take 3 generations to replenish these numbers. For what? To punish humans for settling empty worlds. They are not empty worlds." The hierarch roared. "They are our worlds." "Our ancient claims." "Claims?" The mercurial's voice was sharp as broken glass. "We went to war over pieces of paper written millions of years ago. And now we are paying the price. The human home system, Earth, has been attacked twice. Both times we failed to break their defenses. But each time we try, they strike back harder. They are like a wounded animal that refuses to die." The hierarch turned to the Void Watchers who sat in their usual silence. "You have said nothing through this entire war. You abstained from the vote to intervene. Why, what do you know that we do not?" For the first time in recorded history, a Void Watcher spoke in the council chamber. Its voice was like wind through empty corridors, old and vast. "We warned you. We tried to stop you. But you would not listen. You thought humanity was weak because they are young. You forgot that the young are often the most dangerous. They have nothing to lose and everything to prove. Speak plainly. the hierarch demanded. The humans are related to the predecessors, the Void Watcher said. The ancient ones who built the first civilizations and then vanished. We have studied human genetics. The markers are undeniable. They are the children of gods who thought extinction had claimed them, and you attacked them. Silence filled the chamber. The predecessors were a legend, a myth. The civilization that had supposedly built the hyperlanes, created the first technology, and then disappeared 1,000,000 years ago. Every species had stories about them, but no one had ever proven they were real. That's impossible, the hierarch said, but his voice was uncertain. Believe what you wish, the Void Watcher said, but the truth remains. You started a war with a species that carries the legacy of the galaxy's greatest civilization, and now you are learning why the predecessors were feared. Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. A human fleet had jumped into the system. Not a raiding party, not a scouting group. A full battle fleet, over 200 ships. The council members fled to their ships. The emergency session was over. Now it was a matter of survival. But the human fleet did not attack the station. They had a different target. They had come for the Zathari hierarch's personal flagship, which was docked at the station for repairs. Admiral Chen commanded the assault personally. He had been planning this operation for weeks. The hierarch had become a symbol of the war, the face of council aggression. Capturing him would send a message that could not be ignored. The battle was short and brutal. The station's defenses were designed to repel attacks from outside, not from an enemy that had already breached the perimeter. Human Marines stormed the hierarch's flagship in a lightning raid. The Zathari guards fought hard, but they were not prepared for human tactics. Grenades, close-quarters combat, and absolute ruthlessness. The hierarch was dragged from his command throne in chains. He roared and threatened, but the humans did not care. They transported him to the Indomitable and placed him in a holding cell designed for war criminals. Chen visited him that evening. The hierarch glared at him through the force field, his golden scales dulled by captivity. You cannot do this. The hierarch hissed. I am a council member. There are laws, protocols. You are violating every rule of civilized warfare. Chen pulled up a chair and sat down. He looked tired, older than his years. Civilized warfare. That's an interesting phrase coming from you. Tell me, was it civilized when you glassed New Terra? When you killed 1 billion civilians who had surrendered? Was that civilized? The hierarch said nothing. You started this war thinking we would fold, Chen continued. You thought we were weak because we're young. You thought we would run because your ships were bigger, but you didn't understand something fundamental about humanity. We don't surrender. We don't retreat. We adapt, we endure, and we make sure that anyone who threatens us regrets it. What do you want? The hierarch asked. I want you to stand trial, Chen said. I want the galaxy to see what happens to leaders who start wars they cannot finish. I want every species out there to understand that humanity is not a victim anymore. We're a force they need to respect. The Council will never accept this. They will rescue me, Chen smiled coldly. The Council is falling apart. Half your allies have already left. The rest are negotiating separate peace treaties. You're alone, and tomorrow we're going to broadcast your trial across every communication channel in the galaxy. Every species will watch as you answer for your crimes. The next day, the trial began. It was broadcast from the Indomitable to every corner of known space. Billions of beings watched as the once mighty hierarch stood in chains accused of war crimes. The evidence was presented methodically. Recordings of orders to target civilian populations. Intercepted communications planning genocide. Testimony from survivors of attacks on hospital ships and refugee convoys. The hierarch tried to defend himself, claiming military necessity, citing ancient laws and customs. But the human prosecutors were relentless. They compared his actions to humanity's own dark history, to the war crimes that humans had committed against each other, and learned to condemn. We know what evil looks like, the lead prosecutor said. We've been evil ourselves. We've committed genocide, slavery, and atrocities beyond counting. But we learned, we grew. We built laws to prevent such horrors from happening again, and when those laws were broken, we held people accountable. Now we're holding you accountable. The verdict was unanimous. Guilty on all counts. The sentence was life imprisonment, to be served in a human facility where he would never see his homeworld again. The hierarch's conviction broke the last resistance in the council. 3 more species sued for peace. Only 3 continued to fight, and their efforts were half-hearted, defensive. The war had turned, but humanity was not satisfied with a defensive peace. Admiral Chen received new orders from Earth. Operation Terminal Response. The plan was simple and terrifying. Identify every world that had supported the war, every shipyard, every military base, every industrial center, and systematically destroy them all. We're not just winning this war, the orders read. We're making sure no one ever threatens humanity again. Show them what happens when you push us too far. Chen looked at the orders for a long time. He thought about the cost, about the millions who would die. Then he thought about New Terra, about Viper Squadron, about all the humans who had sacrificed everything. He gave the order. Execute terminal response. No mercy. Human fleets struck across 40 systems simultaneously. They did not target civilians directly, but they destroyed everything that supported the Council war effort. Shipyards became expanding clouds of debris. Orbital factories were reduced to slag. Military academies were bombed into rubble. The Council species watched in horror as their military capabilities evaporated. They tried to fight back, but it was too late. Humanity had learned their tactics, had adapted to their strategies. The predator had become the prey. After 2 weeks of systematic destruction, the remaining Council species sent a joint message. A white flag in every language. A plea for mercy. An offer of unconditional surrender. Admiral Chen read the message and felt no triumph. Only exhaustion. He had won the war. But at what cost? He had become the thing he had always feared, a bringer of death on an unimaginable scale. But he had also ensured humanity's survival. And in the end, that was all that mattered. The war was over. The galaxy was silent. Elena Vasquez stood once again in the great chamber, but everything had changed. The proud council members who had once looked down on humanity now sat with slumped shoulders and defeated eyes. Their ships were gone. Their weapons were destroyed. Their pride was shattered. The final casualty reports had come in. 600 million humans dead. 4 billion council species members killed. Entire worlds devastated. Economies collapsed. Civilizations pushed to the brink of extinction. And all of it because the council had demanded humanity retreat. Elena looked around the chamber. The Zathari seat was empty. The hierarch was in prison, serving his life sentence. The mercurial representative was different from before, a younger consciousness that had not voted for war. The insectoid delegate had been replaced 3 times as their warriors died. Even the Void Watchers seemed diminished, their robes less dark, as if even they had been wounded by the violence. The council acknowledges unconditional surrender, the new Zathari representative said. Her voice was nothing like the hierarch's arrogant boom. She sounded tired, defeated, and afraid. We accept all terms humanity proposes. Elena nodded. She took no pleasure in this moment. Victory felt like ashes in her mouth. But she had a job to do. The Galactic Council is hereby dissolved, she announced. In its place, humanity proposes the formation of a new galactic compact. This new organization will have different rules, different principles. She activated a holographic display. First, all member species will contribute to a reparations fund. This fund will be used to rebuild human colonies destroyed in the war. 20 star systems will be ceded to humanity as compensation. These systems will be selected from the original contested territories and additional buffer zones. The council representatives said nothing. They had no choice but to agree. Second, every former council species will accept human military observers. These observers will monitor your military rebuilding efforts and ensure compliance with the new laws. You will not be allowed to build fleets exceeding defensive requirements. All weapons of mass destruction will be dismantled under human supervision. The Mercurial pulsed weakly. You are asking us to trust you after you destroyed our worlds. Elena's eyes were hard. You started this war. You voted to exterminate humanity. We finished it. And now you'll live with the consequences. If you had simply left us alone, none of this would have happened. But you didn't. So now humanity will ensure you never threaten anyone again. The third term was the most controversial. All former council species will participate in the new compact as equal members with humanity. But humanity will serve as the guarantor of peace. Any disputes will be mediated by human arbitrators. Any aggression will be met with human force. The age of council dominance is over. The age of shared governance begins now. An insectoid delegate raised a claw. And if we refuse these terms? Elena's voice was cold. Then we continue what we started. We finish dismantling your military infrastructure. We occupy your core worlds. We ensure you never threaten anyone ever again. But this time we won't stop at military targets. The threat hung in the air. Everyone understood. Humanity had shown during the war that they were capable of terrible things when pushed. No one wanted to test how far they would go. We accept, the Mercurial said quietly. One by one, the other species agreed. The Void Watcher spoke, its ancient voice filled with something that might have been approval. You have proven yourselves worthy of the predecessor legacy. The Ancient Ones would be proud. You fought not for conquest but for survival. You won not through cruelty, but through determination. And now you offer mercy when you could demand subjugation. The Void Watcher stood and approached Elena. In its shadowed hands it held a data crystal. This is our gift to you. Inside are the coordinates to 3 predecessor homeworlds. Worlds that have not been visited in 1,000,000 years. Worlds filled with ancient knowledge and technology. Use it wisely. Elena took the crystal with trembling hands. This was a treasure beyond measure. Technology that could change everything. But she also understood the responsibility it carried. Admiral Chen attended the signing ceremony that followed. He stood at the back of the chamber watching as species after species signed the new compact. He should have felt victorious. Instead, he felt old and hollow. After the ceremony, Elena found him looking out at the stars. It's over, she said softly. We won, did we? Chen asked. I've been counting the cost. Every human who died, every world we destroyed, every life we ruined. Was it worth it? They didn't give us a choice, Elena reminded him. They demanded we abandon our homes. They would have exterminated us if we had been weak enough to let them. I know, Chen said, but I look at what I've become, what we've all become. We went into this war defending our right to exist. We came out of it as the most feared military force in the galaxy. We broke civilizations. We orphaned billions. We taught the galaxy to fear humanity. Elena put a hand on his shoulder. We also taught them to respect us. Never again will any species look at humans and think we're weak. Never again will they casually threaten our people. You saved humanity, Marcus. You made sure we have a future. Chen was silent for a moment. I'm retiring. I've had enough of war. Let someone else be the monster. I just want to go home. You've earned it, Elena said. We all have. Chen left the military 3 months later. He returned to Earth to a small farm in the countryside where his daughter was waiting. He would spend the rest of his life trying to forget the things he had done, the orders he had given, the lives he had ended. Elena became the first Secretary General of the Galactic Compact. She worked tirelessly to rebuild what the war had destroyed, to forge new relationships between species that had been enemies. It was slow, difficult work. Trust was not easily rebuilt. But gradually the wounds began to heal. The war crimes tribunals continued for years. Former council leaders were tried and sentenced. Some accepted their punishment with dignity, others raged until the end. But justice, however imperfect, was served. Humanity kept its promises. The military observers were fair but firm. The reparations were collected but used to rebuild both human and alien worlds. The 20 systems that had been seeded were settled carefully, with humans and willing alien refugees living side by side. The predecessor data crystal revealed wonders beyond imagination. New technologies that revolutionized space travel, medical advances that saved billions of lives, energy systems that could power entire civilizations cleanly and efficiently. Humanity shared these discoveries with the Compact, earning goodwill and demonstrating that they were not conquerors but partners. 50 years after the war ended, a human teacher named Marcus Chen Jr. stood before a classroom of mixed-species students. Humans, Zathari hatchlings, young Mercurials, insectoid larvae, all learning together. Today we're going to discuss the Council War, he said. Can anyone tell me how it started? A small Zathari raised her claw. The old council told humans to leave their homes. But humans said no. That's right, Marcus said. And what happened next? A human boy spoke up. There was a big war. Lots of people died. But humanity won. Marcus nodded. Yes, but winning the war was not the most important thing. Can anyone tell me what was? A Mercurial student pulsed thoughtfully. What happened after? How humans could have crushed everyone but chose to build peace instead. Exactly, Marcus said. The lesson of the Council War is not about military might. It's about knowing when to fight and when to show mercy. It's about standing up for what's right but not becoming the villain in the process. It's about understanding that today's enemy might be tomorrow's friend. He looked at the young faces before him, representing species that had once tried to destroy each other. You are the future. You've grown up in peace because your parents and grandparents paid a terrible price. They fought so you wouldn't have to. They learned so you could benefit from their wisdom. Never forget what they sacrificed, and never let it happen again. After class, Marcus walked to his office and looked at the old photo on his desk. His father, Admiral Marcus Chen, in his military uniform. The old man had died 5 years ago, but his legacy lived on, not as a warrior, but as the man who had known when to stop fighting. In the vastness of space, human colony ships continued to push outward, but they no longer traveled alone. They were accompanied by ships from the Compact, species working together to explore the unknown. The predecessor homeworlds had been discovered, their secrets slowly being unlocked, and everywhere humanity went they carried the lesson learned at such terrible cost. Strength was necessary, but mercy was what separated civilization from barbarism. Power was important, but knowing when not to use it was wisdom. The galaxy was at peace. It was an imperfect peace maintained by human military observers and the memory of what happened when peace was broken. But it was real, and with each passing generation the peace grew stronger. In the rebuilt council chamber, now called the Compact Assembly, Elena Vasquez gave her final address before retirement. She was 90 years old, her hair white, her face lined with age, but her voice was still strong. When I stood here 50 years ago, I told the council that humanity would not retreat. I told them they would pay for every inch in blood. And they did. We all did. We paid a price so terrible that even now, half a century later, the scars remain. She paused, looking at the assembled representatives. But from that horror we built something better. We built a galaxy where species talk instead of fight, where disputes are settled with words instead of weapons, where different civilizations can live side by side in peace. Humanity could have been conquerors. We had won the war. We had the power to dominate. But we chose a different path. We chose to lift up instead of push down, to build instead of destroy, to forgive instead of taking revenge. That is the true victory. Not the battles we won, but the peace we created afterward. Not the enemies we defeated, but the friends we made from those enemies. She stepped down from the podium to thunderous applause. Every species, every representative, every being in that chamber understood what she had accomplished. What humanity had accomplished. As she left the assembly for the last time, Elena looked up at the stars and smiled. They had been told to retreat. Instead, they had advanced. They had been threatened with extinction. Instead, they had ensured their survival and lifted up an entire galaxy in the process. The ultimatum had been simple: retreat or face destruction. Humanity's answer had been equally simple: no mercy, no retreat, but also no endless hatred. They had fought with everything they had, and when they won, they had shown the galaxy what it truly meant to be strong, not through endless conquest, but through the courage to build peace after war. That was the legacy of humanity. That was the lesson the galaxy would never forget.